start a coffee company but don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it off the ground? Well, we started in 2016 with $0, and it all started with this cart. And now, after taking everything we've learned from building our first cart, we have a new and improved cart that we want to share with you today. When we were first starting, we didn't have any resources to look to. So in this video, we're going to unveil all the details, including cost, layout, and even a suggested source of funding. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab your favorite cup of coffee, and let's talk about how to build your own coffee cart. All right, guys, I'm Ross Walters, one of the founders of Valor Coffee. I started this company back in 2016 with two of my friends by raising $10,000 on Kickstarter, and we've since grown into 2 Atlanta area cafes and a roasting operation. A lot of that success can be attributed to the fact that we just started somewhere, which in this case was a coffee cart. We didn't have the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 that it takes to start a cafe, so we started with this. And that's what's so enticing about starting a coffee cart, is that it's so approachable for anyone. And the most important thing to starting a business is just to start the dang thing. So before we jump into the walkthrough, if you dig content like this and want to see more walkthroughs, tutorial videos, or our weekly podcast, the Valor Coffee Podcast, subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. While you're down there, go ahead and give this video a like and comment below with your coffee cart idea that you're trying to start. So we're going to start with the actual design of our cart and specifically the dimensions. The dimensions are really crucial to get right because you're going to be wheeling this thing through tight quarters, through hallways, through doorways, and you need to be ready for anything. So best practice for us, we've got this thing pretty much as big as I would suggest. It's just under 30 inches. It's like 29 7/8. And there have been times where doorways were too small or doorways were too narrow for our cart to go through. So I wouldn't go any bigger than that. And as far as length, we're coming in just over 6 feet, 74 inches. And again, I would recommend not going any longer than that because there are times, especially elevators, where you just are not going to be able to fit if it's much longer. Elevators are sometimes our arch nemesis. And there was even one time where we showed up to an event, we tried to make it into the elevator, didn't fit, went home, realized while we were at home, what if we just picked up the cart and put it on its side? So that actually works if you ever want to do that, but getting the dimensions right helps you eliminate that factor. Our first cart was wood, and that went pretty great because you can be really custom and it's pretty DIY, but it dents easily, and once it's dented, it's really hard to sand it and make it look great again. We went with metal for this build, where it's sheet metal on the outside and then the frame is made of square tube that's pretty sturdy. And if it gets scuffed up, it's pretty easy just to sand, the paint that was scuffed and then reapply the paint, which is great. One thing that was really important to us in both of our carts is to have a lip that goes over the working surface. Some carts, the surface that you're working on is at the same level that the guest is seeing. And we like to just keep some element of the mess being sort of hidden and away from the guest, and it gives us a good barrier in that way. Simple Carts is a really good manufacturer that you could go to that makes ready-made carts. I think they even sell packages that have plumbing and electrical and that sort of thing. I'm pretty sure their carts don't have a lip, but they do have shelves that you can put on the sides, which I always thought was really cool. For us, we just hit up a local metal fabrication guy, Radiant Metalworks, thanks Brad, and he had this built for us custom. We've got a little bit of a taper on here, which we always wanted, and he was able to accommodate that. So I would suggest researching local metal fab guys. It usually works out. As for the countertop, on our first build, we used contact paper from Home Depot, and that worked out great. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's non-porous and wipes pretty well. As for this one, it's sheet metal, and then I put this sealant over it, probably like 4 coats. That has ended up working pretty good. It kind of scuffs up. I'd probably do it a little bit differently next time, but contact paper over wood or contact paper over sheet metal will probably do you right. And then this raised countertop here is Corian. We have Corian in both of our cafes, in our roastery and on our cart. We like it because you can get any color pretty much, and very low maintenance, and it's relatively lightweight, especially compared to something like granite. When choosing your color and what goes on the cart, we went for something that was pretty mild for the base color, and then something that was kind of loud and proud here for the main logo. And I have things I like about that, and then some regrets as well. I like having a neutral color because you're gonna need to blend in anywhere. And especially when you're doing these premium events like high budget weddings or corporate offices where they really care about branding, they don't always want you to have this loud and proud brand in their space. And so going with a neutral color is great. We did spring for some blue neon lights underneath, which thankfully we can turn off upon request, but it's kind of sick. Now let's talk casters. We just got these from Home Depot, and whatever the most beefy version of them we could get, that's what we got. They have brakes on them, and all 4 of them freely swivel. However, if I was to do this again, which I bet we will one day, 2 of them would be stationary on one side, and then 2 of them would be swiveling, so that it's easier to push the cart with 1 person instead of 2 people. As for plumbing, here is the signal flow, if you will, of water. You've got a flow jet, which has a straw, which goes down in the bottom of your water reservoir. Quick note on water reservoirs. This container here, I think you call these jerry cans. This one's from Reliance, it's 6 gallons. And I like how slim it is, and it saves a lot in terms of space under the cart. So the flow jet straw goes down in there, and the flow jet takes the water out of the jerry can. It then sends the water to what's called an accumulator, which accumulates pressure. That pressured water can then go to your milk pitcher rinser and your espresso machine. From the accumulator, we've just teed off of it 2 ways, and we've really had no problems with that, no problems with pressure. There's different size accumulators. I think this is one of the smaller ones. We were talking earlier about the stuff you can get from Simple Cart, and they have a lot larger accumulators that are more for high volume. And I think you might spring for one of those if you have a 2 or 3 group machine, which would be mental, but would help your line management a lot. Simple Cart makes it a lot easier because they have everything pre-made together where you can just do quick connect on the outside of the rig, and it's a lot easier to disassemble or just leave it installed in the cart. But if you're going budget, which we definitely did on both of our carts, we did all this ourselves. So if you're just a little bit handy with a crescent wrench and you understand what plumber's tape is, then you can take care of this pretty easily. If you don't know how to do any of those things, then it's pretty easy to learn. One key revelation we've had about waste buckets is that it needs to be larger than your water reservoir, because you're gonna be dumping water into the milk pitcher rinser and the drip tray on the espresso machine, but you're also gonna be adding things like milk waste. So this can is from Reliance as well, and I think it's a 8-gallon, it's 7 gallons. So it's a little bit bigger than our water reservoir, and we really dig it. We've got a waste line coming from our GS3, our espresso machine, and then also from our milk pitcher rinser. When we started our first cart, power was a really big hurdle for us because we were running an espresso machine, an espresso grinder, an EK43, which is an all-purpose grinder, and then also a batch brewer from Curtis. It was a single head batch brewer. And we had to have 2 separate electrical circuits to sustain all of that machinery. And while that sounds possible in theory, whenever you're going to an office or a wedding venue, they're not used to accommodating things like that. So we have to shape our operation around what our customer understands and needs. So a really big theme with this cart was just simplicity. Like, how can we put out the most with requiring the least from the venue? So we run all of this just off of 1 surge protector right here. I know there's 2 under, so that's just so that we have the option of more power if we need it. But yeah, it's on 1 surge protector. Just got it zip tied to the back there. Check out this right here. You can see how the cords come along the side all nice and neat and zip tied out. And then we just have an extension cord that we run under this hole. And you can't forget the neon lights, obviously. Some carts have fully built out electrical panels with breakers on them. And for what we're trying to do here, which is brew espresso, and we bring batch brewed coffee to the event, and we use our brewer over here at our headquarters for that. We don't need that much power. And so we don't really need any breakers or anything like that. Another thing that people might ask is, do you need 220 power? And 220 volt power is suited for, 2-group espresso machines, which I've seen some people do on their carts, and with great success. They're able to handle more volume, and sometimes when you're at a wedding, the ceremony lets out and then a line of 150 people just forms and you are just in the weeds for 2 hours. So having more groups is great for that purpose. But again, one major theme with this cart and then just customer service in general is that we want to anticipate the needs of our customer. And in a lot of the cases, our customer is the venue itself. So they're not used to supplying 220. You might rely on a generator at that point, run that thing outside and just have an extension cord that goes out to it. And what we've just ended up doing is renting generators from Home Depot. It's relatively affordable, and whenever we're doing an event where we're outside, we're in a parking lot and there's no 110 power within 50 feet of our operation, a generator works out pretty great. And this is what our plumbing and electrical looks like when it's fully set up for the show. Our first cart had a 5-gallon bucket from Home Depot for our waste bucket, and then we had those 5-gallon bottles for our water. And while those work, they take up a lot of space and they're kind of hard to deal with. So we've gone for these slim cans that work out really great. So we've got our cart pretty much fully laid out as we would for an event. And let's talk about equipment on the cart. The first thing will be the hotly debated topic of espresso machines. I'm just gonna give you 3 tiers of machines that we would recommend. Top tier would probably be the La Marzocco GS3. It's got volumetrics, it's really user-friendly. I love the steam wand. Sometimes the steam boiler can't keep up if it's a really busy time, especially in the winter, but there's ways to help that we could talk about later. The tier 2 that I would say is the La Marzocco Linea Mini. I've seen a lot of people use the Linea Mini to great success, and they've even put 2 Linea Minis next to each other, which looks hot and also would solve a lot of problems with volume. The third tier is the Luca A53, available on Clive Coffee. And honestly, I don't have that much experience with this machine, but I've seen a lot of people use it to great success. And I'd recommend checking it out. Just a quick note that all of the gear that we're talking about today will be linked below in the description, and they are affiliate links. So if you buy the product through that link, we get a little bit of the sale, which is great, helps support the channel and our company. Also, if you go to Clive Coffee and use the code on the screen right now, and you get 5% off most of their products, so make sure to check out their stuff. So on the topic of espresso machines, this is a single group machine as we've discussed, and a really great hack, not just with carts, but also with coffee shops, is to always have double the portafilters that you do group heads. So this is a single group head. We've got 2 portafilters. So as you can imagine, one of these is pulling, and while that one's pulling, I'm not just standing with my hands behind the back, I'm prepping another shot, getting it fully tamped and ready to go. So that way when this one is done, I just unlock it, lock this one back in, and we're always producing espresso. One of our next videos is gonna be more about bar flow and efficiency behind a coffee cart, because even if you get all the right equipment and the right coffee, you're gonna need to learn a few lessons over time of how to optimize all of those things. So an example of that would be like we do split shots in all of our drinks and we do 8-ounce cups. So if you wanna see a video like that in the future, be sure to subscribe for when that releases. Now, for espresso grinders, we have the Anfim Scody 2 on here, but I think they're not gonna make that. But I think these are discontinued, which is really sad because they're my favorite grinder. We'll give you 3 tiers. Once again, top tier would be Malconic E65S, I believe it is. The second one would be an Anfim Practica, which is pretty similar to the E65, but it's a little bit more affordable. And then the last one would be a Malconic X54. These are gonna hold you up pretty good, obviously in descending order of value and performance, but hey, if you're looking to get something started and go cheap, those are the options. So going from left to right here, we've got, some miscellaneous wares like this for iced lattes and milk pitchers like these. And then we have a milk pitcher rinser, which I would totally suggest putting on your cart. It's relatively easy to install, so don't let it intimidate you. We just cut a hole, a rectangular hole in this case, and run plumbing to it like we talked about earlier with the accumulator and the waste. I'm pretty sure this manufacturer is discontinued, but we'll link a few milk pitcher rinsers below that could be good for your cart. Little bar spoon, the longer the better. Espresso machine, towels for milk, all purpose. I love a nice bell jigger here. This is where we keep our syrups. Bottomless knockbox with waste trash can underneath. Always got to have a paintbrush to dust off those grounds. Akaya Pearl, the best scale that I've ever used. Pullman Big Step tamper. I'm just listing all these things so you can start to build out a list of what to outfit your cart with. We always do matcha at our cart events, which we've started doing relatively recently, and it's been great. So we've got a good bit of under counter storage on this build, and that was a big priority for us and one of the reasons that we stopped using a batch brewer underneath the cart. That saves a lot of weight too, and you really need your cart to be as light as possible. And that's one of the reasons we went with a metal build, a sheet metal instead of the wood, because wood's a good bit heavier. So a lot of under counter storage available here. Usually during an event, we'll have a lot more cups here, but this is just to represent that that's where they go. But we just like to keep the top of this bar looking as clean and put together as possible, because a lot of times we're just doing premium events and we want to put our best foot forward. On our first cart build, we thought it'd be a good idea to put a mini fridge under here because we just had that cafe mentality of having your espresso machine, then having your milk fridge right underneath it. But that's really heavy and you can't really fit that much milk in it. So we got one of these coolers off Amazon, link below, and it's worked great for us. And a lot of times we're able to roll up to an event. If it's a smaller event, we'll just roll up with this cart. We got some milk crates under there with miscellaneous gear. Got this and we got our cart and that's it. If it's a bigger event, we'll usually bring a push cart, a utility cart, or a UC as we call it around here. And that usually gets the job done. As I mentioned before, some of the other things that we use to perform a day of service at an event would be a batch brewer. We use a Curtis G4, Fetcos are great too. A batch grinder, Malkonig EK43 is the best that I've ever used for the money. If you're only doing drip, I'd consider a Malkonig GH2, which you could get at wholesale cost through us if you use our coffee. And then as I mentioned before, a generator. If you can just build that into your startup cost to buy a nice generator that can support a cart, that's gonna take you a long way. But a lot of times you just don't need it. And a lot of times it's just clunky and loud. So we just ended up renting them from Home Depot. So last thing that you might forget about is water filtration. If you don't have good water filtration, you will scale your expensive espresso machine, and we don't want that. The other side of that too is you don't want to use water that's too filtered either. And when we first started our cart, we were constantly going to Publix to get that reverse osmosis water that comes in the blue jugs. And that water does not have enough mineral content to efficiently extract coffee. And so we would put in third wave water packets. And while that is a good product and they're great people, it just did not make sense for our operation. So at your base of operations, whether that's your warehouse or your home, install a 3-stage, we have a 4-stage water filtration system at our warehouse where we have a pre-filter and then 3 filters that give us filtered water anywhere in the warehouse. So we just fill up our jugs with that and it works great. Real quick, if you want more information on business licenses, how to price your events, health department stuff, and all those miscellaneous topics, tune into an episode that we did a while back that's an hour-and-a-half long on just coffee carts. Another thing that you might not be thinking about, you need a trailer to put this cart in. That's one benefit of the simple cart, is that it breaks down to be able to just put in the back of your SUV or truck or something like that. But if you've got a cart like this that you had built or built yourself, you gotta have a trailer for it. We have a 5x10 covered trailer that we got a while back. It was one of our first bigger purchases, and it's still held up to this day. So one thing you can do under the counter here is install some shelving, which is great for cups and, like I said, keeping the top of your bar more clean and less cluttered. We don't have any compartments under here, but I think it's something that we'll definitely add, especially because sometimes in transit, this water bottle can fall over and then you get to your event and then you don't have any water. So having a little divider there to keep that all intact. I think whenever we just did this build, we wanted to leave it open to see how our bar flow ended up and then add them later. So I'd recommend that. If you're doing a new build, then just see what you want to put under your cart before you commit to building a full shelving unit under here. So a lot of you starting coffee carts are very concerned with cost, and rightfully so. So we made a really wide range of the very most cheapest combination of things you could do, and then the most expensive combination of things you could do. Cheapest would be something like $6,000, which would involve getting a simple cart, which then allows you to not have the expense of a trailer. Most expensive would be $22,000, around there. That's with a batch brewer, a batch grinder, a trailer, and then this full cart outfitted the way we have it today. So if you want all these things that I've said in a nice, beautiful PDF document, you can check it out in the link below. So we went on the more expensive side of the range, and here's how we did it. We started a Kickstarter for $10,000, raised all 10 of it, Kickstarter took 1,000 of it, and then that still didn't really get us all the way there. I think we bought our espresso machine and maybe a grinder with that, and then some of the plumbing. We also built the cart with that 10K. And then after that, we opened a 0% interest credit card, which lasted for 15 months. We didn't pay ourselves for a year, and we just said, man, if we can't pay off this debt in a year before the interest kicks in, then we're just not gonna do this business. But we grinded it out, got the events, like I said, didn't pay ourselves, and broke even. So here are a few drawbacks to starting a coffee cart, or challenges, you might say. A big hot topic is, what do we do about permitting? Health department, like what category do we fit in? We're not quite a food truck, but we don't really fit into like some of these smaller stands that they have in their literature. I would just say contact your local health department or Department of Ag and just be more transparent with them of, this is what I'm trying to do, how can I make it work? And it might end up involving you having a base of operations such as this, which tends to be a big expense. There's kitchens that you can rent out and use that as your base of operations, so that'll help you save a little bit of money month to month. But I know for a lot of you that are starting out in the beginning, it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to just build out a big space like that. It's totally understandable. So I would just contact your local health department or Department of Ag to see what's possible for you. So another thing, this equipment is not necessarily designed to be on a mobile operation, for you to push it up into the trailer and it's banging while you're going down the road and all that. I remember one time that I opened the trailer after getting to an event, and our GS3 was just like right here hanging by the cord, about to fall on the ground. We've had grinders hit the deck in the trailer. And this is why we wanted to make this video, so that we can help you avoid the things that we learned the hard way. So all we've done on this build is just drill 2 holes on either side of our espresso machine here and just zip tie it down, and it's worked really well. We take our grinder off the cart every event, and it usually just rides shotgun with me, or we'll just affix it under the cart in some way where it's pinned against other stuff. So this drawback is a little bit more big picture, but catering is hard, and most of the battle is getting to the event. Doing the event is the fun part because you're just serving people and you're doing what you love, which is serving people and making coffee, and that's probably why you started this business in the first place. But after your event is over and you're tired, and sometimes it's really late at night, you gotta pack that thing back up into the trailer, drive home, sometimes an hour at a time, and get back to your base of operations, clean everything, and then drive home. And so that's why we kind of charge what we feel like is a fair rate for what we're bringing. And so there's the perceived value of your customer that's booking you. They're just looking at the product in front of them, but then you got to also think about all the work that you put in to get there. And that's why catering, you can charge a premium, because you're bringing a cafe experience to them. I know one thing that really kept us motivated in catering in the early days, we didn't charge very much in the very beginning, and we took any event we possibly could just to get in front of people, and I don't regret that at all. So what kept us motivated during that time was we started this catering operation and this farmer's market pop-up vending operation just so that we could have a cafe one day. So every time I was doing an event and I was like, man, this is not worth it. Like, it's fun to make coffee and all, just not worth it. I just thought about, man, I'm building my brand right now to be able to have momentum going into having my own cafe one day. And that's exactly what happened. So my favorite thing about the GS3 is definitely that it has volumetrics, and that comes in handy when you're doing an event. By the way, we are pulling our flagship blend free throw right now, and we love to have this dialed in at events because it's approachable, but it also still tastes like specialty coffee and it has some nice acidity to it. If you use code CoffeeCart at our website through this video, you can get 20% off a box. Nice little 32-second shot here. Always got to stir your espresso. Let's see how we did. Kind of too hot, but also great. All right, so that gives you a picture of our ideal espresso cart and maybe how you could build one similar. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below and we'll give you our best answer. In the meantime, if you want to check out our long form podcast about starting your own coffee cart, check it out here at this link. See y'all on the next one.